Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into an IPA from the venerable Anchorage Brewing Company. This beer is called Beyond Repair. It is a standard IPA that's been double dry hopped with Riwaka hops. 6.4% ABV on this one. They are of course based in Anchorage, Alaska. So starting with the label art, as always, they have just some of the best label art I've ever seen. I like to save their cans because their artwork is awesome. This looks very sci-fi, very cyborg, kind of punky. It's awesome. I absolutely love it. So label art, yeah, one of the reasons I love them so much, among the amazing beer inside. So we're going to gently crack this, gently. Get that one popped. And we're going to get this poured right in the glass. Give it a decent chance to form a nice head here. We're going to slow down the pour. That's doing beautifully. Their beers do tend to form nice, lush heads on their IPAs. I've had many of them in the last couple of years. While I'm letting this settle before we look at it, I'm going to reiterate here, if you haven't tried out Tavour yet, it is a to-your-door craft beer delivery service. They get top-tier beers from brewers all over the country that you otherwise would not be able to get your hands on. Anchorage Brewing Company is one of those. The only way, if you do not live in the immediate area of Anchorage, Alaska, that you can get your hands on this is Tavour. They are the only shipping partner, and I'm telling you, they are one of the biggest hyped, most award-winning craft brewers in the country for a reason. You owe it to yourself to check out Tavour and see what all they have in store for every style that you love from brewers you've never tried. It's part of the fun. So let's hold this up. Visually, this is a beautiful textbook IPA color. This is not a New England hazy, though it does have a slight bit of a haze to it. It's probably unfiltered, formed a nice beautiful head, a fair bit of active carbonation here, mostly medium, and some smaller bubbles, but it looks quite nice. Head hold nice and creamy. Yeah, that's absolutely lovely. Let's go over it for a proper sniff. Smells like a mix of fresh, ripe citrus and melons. So cantaloupe, honeydew, and some underlying kind of grapefruit, lemon, orange, and lime. A little bit of mix of everything. Smells really quite nice. Now, I could tell you the aroma wasn't so pungent that as I was pouring it, I could pick it up, but get right up on it. It's very crystal clear. It smells very nice, very fresh, very IPA and hop forward. So I'm really looking forward to this one. It's been a while since I've done an Anchorage IPA. Let's jump right in and see what this one's about. Ooh. Oh, that's quite nice. It's very fruity. Very fruity. It's almost like a sorbet or a dessert. Okay, so first things first. Body and mouthfeel. The body feels a little more big than you'd expect for just a standard IPA at 6.4. Has a good bit of heft to it. It's got a nice medium heavy body. It's very solid. It's got a very good presence to it. Mouthfeel, basically an average IPA resistance where I expected it to be, but as is often the case, this one, when you agitate it around the palate, is very creamy, very rich, bordering on silky and velvety. Very tight. Fine bubbles start getting created when you move it around the palate. It gets very thick, very creamy. It's absolutely lush. Immediately upon swallowing, you're hit with this burst of fresh ripe fruit. And very much what you get on the aroma is translated into the glass, though in an even more pleasantly unexpected direction. So yes, you're getting some cantaloupe, you're getting some honeydew, some other ripe melon undertones, including even watermelon. It's kind of crazy. And then mixed with that, you're getting a ton of ripe, fresh citrus. And we're talking flesh of the fruit as well as zest and some of those bittering kind of citric oils. There's grapefruit, there's orange, there's lemon, there's lime. There's all sorts of sub-styles of lemons and limes coming in there. It's kind of all in here. Very fruity, very pungent, very fresh. But one thing I didn't expect was there's this almost orange and cream or creamsicle kind of quality to it. So these melons and these citrus almost are taking on this bordering on vanilla-like creaminess that's adding to the flavor profile. So it really is tasting almost like fruit and cream, and it is absolutely delicious. That said, in terms of hop pungency, This one is not particularly astringently bitter. There is a little bit of underlying bitters. They're mostly earthy. They're not really fruity at all. There's no real pine, resiny tar, anything like that. It's very much a very light classic, almost Fuggle-like in its approach. Very subtle, just classic bittering hop with kind of an earthy profile. And it doesn't overshadow these bright, fresh, ripe fruit and rich, creamy flavors that are coming through. It is absolutely delicious. I'm going to jump in, think a little bit more on the flavor development and the finish, make sure I didn't miss anything else, but this is very nice, very refreshing, and a very approachable IPA. Nice burst of lemon, orange, lime, grapefruit, then melon. Cantaloupe, honeydew, watermelon, it's absolutely there. Give it a few more seconds. A little bit of underlying kind of grain quality from the malt bill. Then it starts to kind of settle down the intensity, and these cream and vanilla overtones and almost marshmallowy in their appearance, in their presentation rather, start to kind of come in and interplay on this beer. Very, very nice. The bitters, very subtle. They're there from the very beginning, but it's very subtle. If I were to try to throw a dart at the dartboard on IBUs, 10 to 20. Very subtle, very light, very approachable. It's not astringently bitter. Very approachable IPA for people just getting into the style or that don't really like hoppy beers. In terms of the length of the finish here, being that it's not very hop forward, very bitter forward, it's not quite as long as your average IPA, to be certain, but it's very nice. The flavors that present themselves have a nice, gentle blossom and a nice, gentle decay, and then it just whispers down to nothing on the back end. Very wet, very round to the end, very nice, clean finish without any real sense of dryness and no lingering bitters or pungent flavors poking on the back end. Overall, a very nice, approachable IPA. I'm a fan of this one. I'm going to take my time, count my scores. When we come back, we will get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This is Anchorage Brewing Company's Beyond Repair Standard IPA, clocking in at 6.4% ABV. It was double dry hopped with Rewaka hops. Anchorage Brewing Company is, of course, based in Anchorage, Alaska. So starting with the aroma on this beer was nice. It wasn't particularly pronounced. I had to get right up on the glass to really get anything out of it. Never really know what you're going to get in terms of pungency of bitters, but it was definitely hop forward. And based on the aroma, I assume more akin to a New England style, where it's focusing on these kind of fruity accents versus the bitters. But the aroma smelled nice. It was high end of average in pungency. It gets a 6 out of 10. For the taste on this was absolutely delicious. Now, my subjective feelings aside, I absolutely wish that there was a greater bitter presence, but the actual flavor itself that translated it in the glass was absolutely delicious. It had a ton of different fruit, kind of subtle undertone flavors here, mixed with kind of on the back end that got this creaminess. So it was almost like fruit and cream, and that's not something I've ever had from just a standard IPA. I've only ever experienced that in a purpose-built, like orange and cream creamsicle beer, which those exist. They're great, by the way. But this was a very well put together, very nice beer. A little bit of the underlying malt bill you could really get in there. It wasn't super oppressive, but it was mostly about these kind of fruity accents and overtones that the hops brought to the table. And what came through was great. Taste does get a 10 out of 10. For the body, this beer had a very nice body for 6.4, a little bigger than I anticipated, but very nice nonetheless. Exactly what I'm personally looking for in an IPA. It's got a little weight to it, and this didn't disappoint. The body does get a 10 out of 10. For the mouthfeel on this one, similar to the body, was very much exactly what I was hoping to get, and it delivered. Your classic kind of IPA, it's got a little resistance to it, not too much. You agitate around the palate and it gets very velvety, very creamy. That happened here. Absolutely fantastic. Mouthfeel gets a 10 out of 10. For the finish on this beer is where really the lack of a hop pungency, that bitter bite, really kind of let it down a little bit. In terms of the finish, it was really just average. This was not a very hop forward in the sense of hop bitters. Hop forward in the sense of the underlying flavor and aroma character traits, but without extracting all the alpha acids into the base beer. So we had a very floral, very fruity, creamy kind of taste experience here, but in terms of how long the finish lasted, it really was just average. It lacked the bitter pungency to help push it along. Finish does get a 5 out of 10. For the head and retention, this one did a fantastic job. Very lush, creamy, silky head on top. Head and retention gets a 10 out of 10. For the appearance, this was one of those textbook IPAs. It's exactly what I think of in my head when I picture an IPA. Appearance gets a 10 out of 10. For the balance, overall I enjoyed the balance of this beer. Without the real kind of kick of bitters, for me, for an IPA, I get what it's doing here, but it really is a fundamental underlying characteristic trait of the beer style. It just needed a little more bitters, and it would have helped multiple other aspects of the beer along. Again, I thought it was delicious. What I got, I enjoyed, but overall the balance for me was off. It needed to have some alphas extracted into the boil beyond what it did have. And frankly, I would have liked a little more presence from the underlying malt bill as well. That said, I did think it was above average balance. Gets a 7 out of 10. For the feeling and the intangible, subjectively, yes, I'm a hophead. I was craving more bitters, but this was a very, very good IPA. Make no mistake about it. I really enjoyed what it brought to the table. I really enjoyed this kind of twist, this interesting fruit and cream element that I've never had from just a standard IPA with nothing else added into it. It was a very unique IPA drinking experience. I really enjoyed it. Subjectively, 9 out of 10. Finally, is an example of the style. Overall, this beer did very well. Lost a few points in a few categories, but frankly, for what it is, standard IPA, really no frills here, no lactose, no fruit, anything added. It was a very nice beer drinking experience, also a very accessible beer. For just a standard IPA, I think this is certainly well above average. Example of the style does get a 9 out of 10. Which brings the total score on Anchorage Brewing Company's Beyond Repair to an 86 out of 100. So absolutely we're talking about an above average IPA here. This is one that if you love all kinds of IPAs, you're definitely going to enjoy it. It's absolutely delicious. If you don't really care for the more bitter forward, maybe you lean towards New England style, this is one I'd look at. Very fruity, got this creamy sense, creamy side, very subtle on the bitters. In fact, much more so than even the majority of New England style IPAs, purpose-built, that I've had. This is very approachable, absolutely delicious. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop on our videos, go live to YouTube. Just turn on the notifications by clicking the bell icon. It is right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.